Computer, or digital, screens are common at work, homes, schools, and stores. An estimated 104 million Americans of working age spend more than 7 hours a day in front of screens, the American Optometric Association says. All that screen time can cause harm. Too much screen viewing can lead to dry or watery eyes, unclear vision, and headaches. It can also lead to vision conditions including myopia or nearsightedness, especially in children. Some technology workers even describe short times of dizziness or vertigo when they look at screens for too long. However, exposure to blue light from digital screens has not been shown to cause permanent eye damage, the American Academy of Ophthalmology says. One reason for the screen-linked vision problems lies in the eye muscles. Staring closely at screens for long amounts of time can cause the muscle used for eye focus to become too tense or tight. That muscle's not supposed to stay tight all day long, and if it does, it's like picking up a light weight and trying to hold it over your head for hours, American Optometric Association President Stephen Reed told the Associated Press, AP. It is not hard to lift, he said, but after a while, even though it's not a heavy lift, your body just gets tired, he added. The vision problems can affect work, family time, and rest. As an optometrist in Mississippi, Reed sees people who are experiencing eye pain, headaches, and unclear vision linked with computer use. He suggests that people with such problems get an eye examination and take regular breaks from screen viewing. Here are some more tips from eye health professionals to reduce eye strain caused by devices.
Take a break every 20 minutes from looking at a computer. During the break, focus your eyes on something that is about 20 feet away, or 6 meters, for 20 seconds. This will help ease tired, tight eye muscles. Luckily, eye strain is temporary, said Raj Maturi, an eye doctor or ophthalmologist at Midwest Eye Institute in Indianapolis, and spokesperson for the American Academy of Ophthalmology. The best way to avoid these symptoms is by taking breaks from our screens or near-work activities and using lubricating eye drops if needed, he said. People normally close their eyes very briefly, about 18 to 22 times per minute. This helps lubricate the eye naturally. But when looking at a screen, people might close their eyes only 3 to 7 times per minute, the Cleveland Clinic says. That is when use of eye drops might be considered.
Some people find that using a larger computer screen helps reduce eye tiredness or fatigue. You can also increase the image size on your laptop, monitor, or smartphone screen. Sitting an arm's length away from your screen and looking down at it also can help reduce eye strain, the American Academy of Ophthalmology says.
Some products for computer users, such as blue light glasses, are marketed with claims that they will reduce eye strain, improve sleep, and prevent eye disease. But several studies have found the glasses are not very effective, says the American Academy of Ophthalmology. The group says it is how people use digital devices that causes problems, not the blue light coming from screens.
Even after stepping away from work on larger computers, many adults find themselves using smaller digital devices for reading or watching shows. And many children use small digital devices such as laptops, tablets, and smartphones in school. Aisha Melik of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia said that too much screen time or focusing on nearby objects can speed development of nearsightedness, especially in children. She added that anyone watching shows should do so on a television instead of a tablet to help avoid eye strain. Children should follow the 20-20-22 rule, she said. The added 2 stands for 2 hours of play outside every day, which helps with eye development, Melik said. The reality is that most children are engaging with screens throughout the day at school and home. It becomes difficult to track the total number of hours, she said. Aim for not more than 20 minutes during any one session.
The blue light that digital screens release can increase a person's alertness, experts say. As a result, their use might make it difficult to fall asleep or sleep well. To give your eyes and brain the rest they need, doctors suggest turning off screens 1 to 2 hours before going to sleep. You can also change the setting on digital devices to lower screen brightness. If you are used to watching videos at night, try listening to an audiobook or podcast instead.
Donald Trump's desire to seize control of Greenland and the Panama Canal is being shaped in part by a force that he has sought to deny even exists: the climate crisis. Last week, Trump ramped up his demands that the United States annex both Greenland and the Panama Canal, refusing to rule out economic or even military interventions to take them, and threatening very high tariffs upon Denmark, of which Greenland is an autonomous territory, if it opposes him. "We need them for economic security," Trump said. "The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China." China! "We gave the Panama Canal to Panama, not China." The US president added that Greenland was required for national security purposes and that Denmark should give it up. Trump's rhetoric has been denounced by other world leaders, but the rationale for this expansionism is being influenced, experts say, by something affecting both Greenland and Panama: rising global temperatures caused by the burning of fossil fuels. Even though the incoming US president has called climate change a giant hoax, his son, Donald Jr., acknowledged the value of mining rare minerals in Greenland that are being uncovered as the ice rapidly retreats from the vast Arctic island. Greenland's enormous ice sheet is losing an average of 30 million tons of ice an hour due to the climate crisis, raising sea levels and potentially collapsing vital ocean currents. Donald Jr. said on a trip to the island last week that he wanted to make Greenland great again, accusing Denmark of blocking its self-governing territory from developing the great natural resources that they have, whether that's coal, whether that's uranium, whether that's other rare minerals, whether that's gold or diamonds. As sea ice dwindles in the Arctic Ocean, meanwhile, new shipping routes through the far northern latitudes are becoming more viable. Robert O'Brien, Trump's former national security advisor, said that Greenland, which has had a US military base since 1941, is key to counter the threat of China and Russia, but it is also very important to the Arctic, which is going to be the critical battleground of the future because, as the climate gets warmer, the Arctic is going to be a pathway that maybe cuts down on the usage of the Panama Canal. While global heating is causing Greenland to shed its ice, in Panama it has helped spur a severe drought that has gripped the country since 2023. This drought has caused the human-made Gatun Lake, which supplies the water for the canal, to plummet by several feet, limiting traffic through the famed shipping thoroughfare. Last year, shipping entering the canal slumped by nearly a third due to these restrictions. The US reasserting dominion over the Panama Canal, which it handed over to Panama via a treaty in 1999, would, like in Greenland, give it opportunistic control over resources increasingly strained by the climate crisis. Greenland has lost massive amounts of ice, making it more attractive for rare earth mining and oil drilling, while we are already seeing more traffic through the Arctic Ocean as it becomes ice-free for longer, said Alice Hill, a former climate advisor to Barack Obama. In Panama, climate change impacts how the canal operates and puts pressure on the US to find different routes or try to get priority over China for the canal itself. Climate change is altering the fundamental calculus of the strategic importance of the Arctic, as well as the Panama Canal, Hill added. It's ironic that we now have a president who famously called climate change a hoax, but is now expressing interest in taking over areas gaining greater importance because of climate change. The impacts of a superheated planet are helping refashion geopolitics in a variety of ways. As droughts and storms cause people to migrate, conflicts erupt over resources such as water, and borders are even redrawn between some countries as snow and ice dwindle. The US isn't the only power attempting to capitalize upon the upending of a stable climate, with China hatching plans for a polar Silk Road that will connect Chinese ports to Europe and beyond via a northern shipping route as the Arctic becomes less dominated by ice. Climate change is shaping geopolitics even if leaders don't want to admit it, said Sherry Goodman, an author and expert on the polar region at the Wilson Center. China is clear-eyed about the climate threat, and they will take advantage of that in access to resources and infrastructure. We ignore this climate threat at our peril. Trump, I think, sees this rush for resources and climate change is making them more accessible. It's interesting to see how isolationist he was in his first term. Now he seems almost imperialist. It's hard to know where this will end up. This scramble for resources and the rise of nationalist leaders in several countries, including the US, has stoked fears of a sort of right-wing environmentalism taking hold, where wealthier countries trample over those in vulnerable nations as climate disasters escalate. Jean-Noël Barrot, France's foreign minister, warned last week, "We have entered an era that is seeing the return of the law of the strongest." Leaders in Greenland, Denmark and Panama have all rejected Trump's calls for US assimilation. It's a sentiment many people living in these places, often overlooked in the geopolitical wrangling, share. "Our country is ours. It's not for sale," said Ole Hjort, 27-year-old air traffic controller from Nuuk, Greenland. Trump says a lot of things that aren't very serious, but now it's become quite scary. "We don't want to be American, and these threats are really pushing people in Greenland away from the Trump administration and the US, said Aja Chemnitz-Larsen, a Greenlandic politician who represents one of the 2 seats that Greenland has in Denmark's parliament. It's been quite disrespectful how this has been handled. Chemnitz Larsen, a supporter of Greenlandic independence from Denmark, said there was enthusiasm for new economic opportunities, such as tourism and even rare earth mining, to diversify from traditional practices, such as fishing, but that the climate crisis was a stark reality in realizing this. Climate change is affecting everything in Greenland. We are seeing land becoming exposed and also new species in the sea, she said. For us, climate change is real. There's no doubt that it's here and will become more difficult for us in time.
Speak up.
Middle East and Africa.
Fighting malaria. Worth a shot. Aid cuts are threatening the rollout of life-saving new vaccines.
When Pauline Otienyo's second child caught malaria a decade ago, it meant an anxious, feverish week in hospital. When her third-born fell sick recently, he recovered after being given some pills and a few days' rest. The difference might have been luck, or it might have something to do with the world's first malaria vaccine. It has been available at Ms. Otienyo's local clinic in Migori County in southwestern Kenya since 2019. Her third child had received it, the second had not. Vaccines are a vital new tool to stop children in poor countries falling sick and dying of malaria. Though not perfect, they are a useful supplement to bed nets and anti-mosquito sprays. A swift rollout in the countries worst affected by the disease, all of which are in Africa, could save as many as 1 million lives in the next 5 years. Yet that will probably not happen. The main reason, as rich countries slash their aid budgets, is that nobody wants to pay for it. 2 vaccines are currently in use. 3 doses of the one, known as RTS-S, that have been piloted in Migori since 2019, halve a child's chance of falling ill over the following year and soften the severity of symptoms. A study in Kenya, Ghana and Malawi shows a drop of 13% in deaths among children who were eligible for the shots. A newer, cheaper vaccine, known as R21, has proved to be at least as effective. A 4th, booster dose of either vaccine helps sustain protection. Manufacturers say they can make enough shots to vaccinate all eligible children in the worst affected countries. GSK, a British pharmaceutical company, will be able to produce 15 million doses a year of RTS-S from 2026. India's Serum Institute, which makes R21, says it can churn out 100 million doses a year, rising to 200 million if needed. But most of the current capacity is unused, though African governments have begun rollouts. Gavi, an international alliance that funds vaccines in poor countries, plans to spend $1.1 billion on malaria over the next 5 years, jabbing 50 million children. That could avert 170,000 deaths, save families money on hospital bills, and free up resources to fight other illnesses. Yet, at the rate envisaged by Gavi, it will take another decade to vaccinate all children under 3 in the countries at greatest risk from malaria. The Center for Global Development, or CGD, an American think tank, reckons that goal could be achieved by 2027 at an extra cost of $3.5 billion over 5 years, which is less than Americans spend every year on costumes for Halloween. Gavi's ambition is bound by the generosity of the governments and philanthropists that fund it. Donors were supposed to meet in Brussels in March to pledge contributions for the next 5 years, with a target of $9 billion for all diseases. But the summit has been postponed until June. The postponement reflects a funding crisis in global healthcare. Historically, nearly a quarter of Gavi's routine funding has come from Britain, which is slashing foreign aid to pay for more defence spending, and 1/7 from America, which said this week that it would stop funding Gavi. Seth Berkley, who led Gavi until 2023, says that an American retreat would be very hard and a British one devastating. He hopes that Gavi's reputation might protect it. Last time it asked for money, in 2020, it raised more than expected. Canada recently pledged 675 million Canadian dollars. That's $470 million for the current funding round. Aid cuts have made the rationale for Gavi no less compelling. Vaccines are a cheap way to save lives, yet too expensive for many countries to afford. Just $4,000 spent on a program involving R21 is enough to avert one death. By procuring vaccines in bulk, Gavi ensures lower prices and a stable supply. It also shields governments from some of the currency risks they would face if they bought vaccines directly. Even so, the recommended 4 doses cost $15.60, which is more than many African governments spend per person on healthcare in a whole year. That means that when budgets are tight, resources could be diverted from other anti-malaria interventions. Bed nets are just as cost-effective as R21. The best results come when the two are used together. The Global Fund, which helps pay for nets and other tools, is also trying to raise money this year. It is even more dependent than Gavi on American support. One way for Gavi to save money, according to CGD, would be to prioritize R21, which is a third of the price of RTSS. However, Sanya Nishta, Gavi's chief executive, says diversity of manufacturers helps encourage competition and ensure the security of supply. In the long run, that is probably true, yet in the short run it will mean buying fewer doses of the vaccine. Without Gavi's support, many children will die. Nearly a third of all malaria deaths occur in Nigeria, which is slightly too rich to qualify for much outside help, even though it spends only $15 a year per person on healthcare. A vaccine rollout began last year in 2 of its 36 states. Mui Aina, the official in charge, says it will reach a couple more by next year and the rest eventually. How long until every Nigerian child is vaccinated? The sooner the better, but you've got to be able to pay for it, he says, citing the high price. Where vaccines are available, people embrace them. Nurses in Kenya's Migori County say they have met less suspicion than they did during COVID-19 vaccination campaigns, perhaps because the burden of malaria is so familiar. The biggest challenge is reaching children for the 4th booster dose. Families are unused to having older children vaccinated and also often move around, for instance, to work for months at a time in small-scale gold mines. In some countries, such as Cameroon, conspiracy theories have spread, but civil society groups and religious leaders have helped to counter misinformation, says Olivia Ngo, a healthcare activist there. In Migori, a more pressing problem is the hit to other anti-malaria programs because of the cuts in American aid. The supply of bed nets is uncertain. Insecticide sits unused in a warehouse because there is no money to pay for spraying it. With the arrival of vaccines, the world has more tools than ever to fight a cruel disease, if it chooses to wield them.
Have you ever seen the word proof on the label on a liquor bottle and wondered, proof of what? Well, proof is one way of measuring a drink's alcohol content. The measurement system goes back to the 16th century, when the English government would tax spirits that had a certain higher alcohol content. The English Navy would test spirits by soaking a pellet of gunpowder in the liquor and trying to light it on fire. If it ignited, it was proof of higher alcohol content, and the spirit would receive the proof tax. This wasn't the most scientific way to test alcohol content. When you light liquor on fire, you're actually igniting the ethanol vapor it's emitting, not the liquid itself. That means a spirit's flammability is dependent on its temperature as well as alcohol content. The warmer it is, the more vapor it will emit to light up. Still, even at cooler temperatures, the more ethanol a liquor has, the more vapor it will produce. Although the Navy's method wasn't consistent, drinks that were above 50% alcohol by volume were probably passing their test. In 1816, the British government decided to make the measurement more official. It defined proof liquor as having an alcohol level 12/13 the weight of the same amount of distilled water when resting at 51 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 48% alcohol by weight, or 57% ABV. Think rum, whiskey, brandy, or vodka. Other countries took a slightly simpler approach. In 1848, the United States defined proof as double the ABV, so a spirit with 50% ABV would be 100 proof. France had taken it a step further. In 1824, scientist Joseph Louis Gay-Lussac decided that 100 proof would equal 100% alcohol by volume, making proof the same as ABV. By the 1980s, Britain and the rest of Europe had started using ABV instead of proof as the standard measurement for alcohol content. Listing proof is no longer a requirement and is rarely seen outside the US. So, now you know. Alcohol proof was originally proof that a liquor could be lit on fire. Just don't try it at home.
Speak up.
Mary Kay Cosmetics is an international company that sells beauty products. One woman started the business in the 1960s with an investment of $5,000. Mary Catherine Wagner was born in the state of Texas in 1918. For much of her childhood, she cared for her sick father, while her mother worked long hours at a restaurant. Mary Kay married Ben Rogers when she was 17 years old. They had 3 children before he left home to serve in World War II. When he returned, their marriage ended. Mary Kay looked for a job so she could support her children. She began selling different kinds of products. One night, Mary Kay was showing products at the home of Ova Heath Spoonmore. Ms. Spoonmore began giving her guests some homemade skincare products. The products were developed by her father, J.W. Heath, in Arkansas. Mary Kay tried the skincare products and liked them. She bought the rights to Heath's skincare products and started her own company. She paid $500 for the legal rights to the products, and in 1963, the Mary Kay Cosmetics Company began operating in Dallas, Texas. The idea was to sell skincare products through demonstrations in homes and offices. Independent sales representatives bought beauty products from the company and sold them at higher prices. Mary Kay decided that each representative who brought other saleswomen into the company would receive part of the new person's earnings. That way, experienced sales representatives would be willing to train new ones. By 1965, the company was selling almost $1 million in products. Mary Kay Cosmetics became one of the most successful direct sellers of skincare products in America. It continues to have sales offices and representatives in many different countries. Mary Kay aimed to grow sales based on the idea that it is best to compete against yourself. That means every individual is trying to beat their own sales records. Prizes for high sales marks included special paid holidays and jewelry. Until a few years ago, a pink Cadillac was a top prize. After her third husband, Mel Ash, died of cancer in 1980, she wanted to help find a cure for the disease. At first, she helped organizations raise money for research. Later, she started the Mary Kay Ash Charitable Foundation, a nonprofit group that provides money to support research on cancers affecting women. In 2001, the company and foundation expanded their goals to help prevent violence against women. Mary Kay Ash also wrote 3 books. She worked in her business until she suffered a stroke in 1996. She died in 2001. Sales representatives say Mary Kay developed a way for women to earn money and still spend time with their families.